Now, Washington Mornings on the Mall. At AM 630. WMAL.
8:07. Happy Wednesday morning to you. Brian Eamon, Brian Wilson.
Hey.
Now you got me all nervous because
I know.
you've been hyping this all day.
You're very excited about Pat Sajak being on the show.
You know my love of game shows, and I wasn't nervous until this morning until you made such a big deal about it that Pat Sajak's going to be on the show.
He used to be your boss.
I know. Pat's on the line right now. Of course, you know him from Wheel of Fortune and great game show host and does many other things besides that, by the way. And I guess you could consider him my boss at one time because I worked at WNAV in Annapolis where I got my start in broadcasting, and Pat is the owner there. And I'm sure you remember those years fondly, don't you, Pat?
We still have the bust in the foyer.
Is that right? Thank you. You did not give it back to the UK then, right?
No,
like
exactly.
the Churchill bus.
No, yeah, we've had a number of people go through there, but of course your impact was long and lasting. And when were you there?
Right. Yeah, I did get your dry clean, right?
No, seriously, when were you there?
96 to 99, I guess it was. I did the news.
Right.
Steve Hopp was I'm still there, I believe, right?
Steve is still there.
Bill Lusby.
Was I a benevolent owner? I don't remember.
You were. I tell people this all the time, because I say, Pat Sajak one time my boss, and I have a picture with you, and they say, what's he like? And I say, he is very quick, immensely talented, and a super nice guy.
Wow.
And I mean that sincerely.
That's good. Well, it's funny. I started as a lot of us did in at small radio stations, and so I'm kind of I try to be sensitive to that, and I pretty much stay out of Steve Hopp's way there, and I let him do what he wants. Just because you buy something doesn't mean that you know how to run it. You should tell that to some sports owners. But,
right. That's not how it works.
But I still do, and a lot of good people have come through there. Anyway, I'm glad to know things are going well for you. I assume they're going well.
Yes, I do too. You'd have to ask my boss, which they unfortunately are in our business a lot. In corporate radio. So, by the way, tell us, because you told me one time about how you got started, and you were in the Army. You were in Vietnam in 1968, right?
I was one of the Good Morning Vietnam guys. The movie was done about a guy named Adrian Cronauer. I think he was there in 66 or something like that. I got there in late 68 and spent a year and a half and yelled Good Morning Vietnam every morning, which is not smart when the enemy is outside your door, but I did it anyway. And it was funny because it sounds odd to say, but it was the biggest market I'd ever worked in. There were 500,000 American troops and a lot of civilians there, and the government spends well, so the equipment was great. So I learned a lot about broadcasting in the Army, oddly enough. It took a war to do it, but it's kind of got my career jump-started.
Is this one of the reasons why you are lending your support and your name to the 6th Annual GI Film Festival, which is going on now?
It is indeed, Brian. I wouldn't call myself an activist when it comes to military and veterans affairs. I do what I can, and I help out where I can. And this is a great event. It's every year. It goes on. It's going on all week in D.C. And tonight there's a screening of some international short military-related films at the Canadian Embassy that they're calling it emceeing. I'm going to help facilitate a few questions from the filmmakers, but mainly just enjoy these films. The GIFilmFestival.com has information on all the events going on this week. A lot of them are sold out, but if anyone wants to check out anything available, there's a lot of good stuff going on.
You've done Wheel of Fortune for a lot of years now. You do it flawlessly, and of course the show is taped, and so we, the viewing audience, never really get to see the bloopers. And so I've always wanted to ask you, what is the wildest thing that has happened that we never got to see?
It's odd. There aren't a lot of them, and the reason for that is what you call a blooper. Things that go wrong that we stop tape for are things that are very unfunny, like a light burning out or a letter not lighting up. So we stop, and if it affects the game, we stop and start again. But if it's just me screwing up, I do that all the time, and I do have a facility to kind of play around with that stuff. So I like it when things go wrong.
But occasionally you can never predict what the people who are contestants are going to do or say.
We don't, they're so well trained. Coordinators are yelling at them all the time, and we don't have this blooper reel. Most of the stuff that kind of goes wrong, you've seen on the air. The stuff that we'll cut out. Again, it's not a terribly funny story, but occasionally, a contestant person will really get upset with himself or something that happened, and an expletive will have to be deleted,
right?
Because it is a family show after all.
Right.
So that's about the extent of it. But we don't have like a lot of sitcoms or anything. We don't have this sort of funny outtake reel that I can regale you with stories about.
You live in Maryland. You're a small business owner or a business owner in Maryland, and I know in recent years you've been more open about your political views. Why have you done that? Because a lot of people don't, they like to be like Dick Clark, who used to say was very, I wouldn't say plain and vanilla, but right down the middle, so they wouldn't offend anybody. But you've been a little bit more open about that. I
have, but I've really tried to, and it's not anything new. I mean, I've always sort of been open about it, if that's the right way to say it. But I've really been careful about separating the sort of political me from the show business me, because my quarrel with celebrities and quasi-celebrities in politics is not that they're involved in it. They're Americans, and we're all entitled to do that.
Sure.
It's that they proselytize or that they bait and switch. I mean, if I go to see a concert, unless I know it's a political event, I want to hear the guy sing. I don't want to, I don't want to be talked about whales. I don't want to know about the climate. I don't want to know about who to vote for. If it's a political event, that's another thing. So whenever I am political, it's always in a political context. I mean, there's an event people go to, they know what they're getting, or if I'm writing for a particular site that's politically oriented, that's fine. But I never use whatever celebrity entree I have to try to bring people into a particular tent. I just don't think that's fair. And so on the show, I certainly don't. And again, if you're going to get anything political out of me, it's in a political context.
Do you ever follow Maryland politics as a resident of Maryland?
Yeah, to some extent. I mean, it's a tough. Listen, I'm not sure why. I've always wondered why people even get involved in politics. Such a tough game. But these days it's really tough. At least, there was a time when at least you had the fun of spending money. Now you can't even do that. It's a tough time. Nobody likes austerity. No one's a hero during that. But that's kind of where we are, and people are going to have to step up and lead that way. And that's a tough order. It's much easier to say, I'm going to give you this and give you that, other than instead of saying, you're not going to get so much of this or that because we can't afford it.
All right, we had Chuck Woolery on the show not too long ago.
You're going to go there.
Well,
right?
and ask, and I said, it was great to meet Chuck Woolery in person. I said, I've known Pat SAJAK. I met him once. I actually used to work for the guy. And he said, oh, that guy. He stole my job. Now, I think he was a little tongue-in-cheek, but is there any bad blood between you and Chuck Woolery?
No, I haven't seen Chuck in years, but for years after he left the show, we'd done a few things together. I mean, he had a daytime talk show for a little while. I did, and I mean, we don't. Game show hosts don't have this condo they all live in together. So right. I don't see a lot of him, but he's done fine. Look, when Chuck left, he didn't expect the show to be on for 30 years. When I got there, I didn't expect it to be on for 30 years. Those things happen. And he's fine with it all, and he does kid about it.
Yes.
If there's one thing that I'm sure he goes through, there's got to be not a day in his life where someone doesn't come up to him and say, "Hey, I bet you're sorry you gave up."
Yeah.
So he has to live with that. But we all make these decisions, and I don't know if he would have done anything differently or not. But it's not as if he said, the show's going to be around for 3 decades, but I'm not going to be a part of it. He had no idea, nor did I when I started. It's a fluky business, and stuff happens.
How long will you do the wheel?
I have 2 criteria for leaving. I mean, when I do leave, it's not going to be because I hate it or anything, because I love doing the show. It's a cushy schedule. They pay me well. They're very nice to me. The viewers are great, so I have no complaints. But there is a time when you're going to say that's enough. I mean, I'm not out to break any records. Here are the criteria. I'd like to leave while the show is still very popular, and it is extremely popular still. That's the amazing part. It's not that it's still on the air, but it's still hugely successful. That's 1. And 2, I'd like to leave before people start going, what the hell happened to him? So I don't know if we're there yet, although I look in the mirror and I think we're getting close. So I don't know when, but it's not going to be another decade, but it's at some point I'll step aside again, not because I'm miserable, it's just because let's give someone else a shot.
Well, it was a pleasure having you on the show. Thanks very much, and thanks for doing the GI Film Festival as well.
Looking forward to that. See everyone at the Canadian Embassy tonight, and Brian, your severance pay is still waiting at the station.
Thank you. I'll be there to pick it up.
Was there any interesting about that severance? We want to hear the real story. All right. Thank you, Pat.